Good morning, everybody, or evening, or afternoon, wherever it is you are watching this, whether it's live or recorded. Hello, how you doing? Welcome back. I am David J.P. Fisher, also known as D-Fish, and I'm really looking forward to kicking off another series with everybody this week during this fun pandemic time that we're in. And I want to talk about this week a topic that I'm super passionate about, and that's empathy. That's actually building human connections with people, which may sound odd because a lot of the work I do is also about how do we use digital tools to help in the business development, sales, and networking process. But I don't think those two things are actually exclusionary, and in fact, I don't think it's a contradiction. I think the better you are at using digital tools to actually move relationships forward, the better off you are. So thank you for joining us as we get this started. We will be coming at you every day this week, right at 11:30. Sometimes I'll be in my fancy studio. Sometimes I will be out here in the dining room. Depends on who won the coin toss for the office, me or my wife. And today, just to warn you, I do not have my co-host, who's way cuter than I am. Liam is off on a walk, so you just have to deal with me. And hello to everybody. Hey, Kim, thanks for joining us. Hey, Katie, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the kind shout out on LinkedIn. I appreciate that. And so let's dive in, because we don't have a lot of time, and this is a topic we could spend a lot of time on. Today, I really want to look at just a few key reasons why focusing on this idea of empathy, focusing on this idea of human connection is incredibly important and is incredibly relevant right now in today's age, both as far as a time period that's really being driven by technology, and also one that obviously has a lot of wackiness going around with the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. And this will probably come up again throughout the week, but I actually feel that empathy is a very underrated part of sales right now. And it is something that is given a lot of lip service, but that few practitioners actually pay attention to. And I think that's being really driven negatively by technology. And it's not technology's fault. I think what's really happening is that over the last, let's say 10 or 15 years, we've seen a lot of organizations, sales organizations, adopt this idea of scale and growth to the detriment of everything else. And what we've really seen is the mechanization of the sales process. And the sales process has always been a bit mechanical, right? If I can say sales process, you can mechanize, you can make a process, you can scale it, you can make it repeatable, everything that's really exciting if you were trying to build a business. And so over the last 10 years, I would say we've seen the ultimate expression of that. Because this happened not just in the last 10 years, but over really last generation, where sales was, hey, make more phone calls, follow the script, just try to be a machine. If somebody says, no, it's fine, just make another phone call, dial for dollars, all that kind of stuff. And what sales managers and sales leaders were really doing was trying to get their salespeople to be machines, because they were just trying to get as much production out of them as possible. All of the inspiration and motivational speeches, all the training was around how do we get people to not be human, to just, again, do the same thing over and over again, routine, to actually get better results. And by the way, there is a place for process in sales. I'm not saying that at all. By the way, I teach people how to use scripts. I consult with companies, help them develop sales programs and sales scripts. There is value in that, but it's about how they're used. And what I'm going to suggest to you is you need to have a really good sales process, but you have to be a human within that process. The example I would give you is, if you go see a play, you go see Shakespeare, nobody's rewriting Shakespeare. That process is really good. But each actor inhibits that role that they're playing on stage. They bring their own personality to it, their own interpretation to it, their own human empathy to that role. You need to do the same thing in sales. And to do that, we have to figure out what sales is, or I'm sorry, what sales is, that's a whole nother discussion. What empathy is, how do we build it? How do we build those empathy muscles? And how do we make this an integral part of how we engage with people? Because what I will say, and we're learning what empathy is, if all you can do is be a machine, and this is something I think that a lot of salespeople don't want to look at right now, and sales organizations, sales leaders, they don't really want to look a little down the road. Because if you are truly being a machine, if you're being mechanical, I can now replace you with a machine that's better. I can replace you with AI. I can replace you with a click funnel. I'm kind of amused by these organizations that just hire a bunch of SDRs, sales development representatives, that just pound the phones and emails, and they're just basically trying to prospect. Eventually, they're just going to figure out a way to do it more effectively with a chat bot or something. And here's the reality: a chat bot's not going to get coronavirus. So if all you have to offer is being mechanical and following the routine, you're screwed. But if you bring the humanity to it, if you bring the empathy, creativity, some other things we'll talk about this week, you're going to be good to go. So hopefully I've got your attention, although, I'm probably preaching to the choir. I'm sure if I was doing a message on the 12 ways to close people right now, even with the pandemic, there'd be way more people on, because it's sexy and it seems like it's a shortcut to success. But here's the reality: there are no shortcuts. So let's look at what empathy is. And I want to actually talk today about what empathy is, because again, it's this word that gets thrown around, and it's a buzzword, but nobody really knows what it means, I feel, or very few people. And that's why they can just kind of throw around like, oh yeah, you should totally be empathetic with your customers. But what does it mean? Here's a very simple way of thinking about it. Empathy, well, and here's a great definition. Empathy is the ability to recognize, understand, and respond to the emotional state of others in an appropriate way. So what does that really mean? When you look at the science of empathy, the biggest thing in empathy is something called theory of mind. So I'm going to get nerdy for just a second, but stick with me. It's valuable. So the theory of mind, at its core, basically means that you can understand that you have an emotional outlook, that you have a mind that uses to perceive the world, and you can understand that other people also have one that is different than yours. This, by the way, is why somebody who is sociopathic, for example, has a challenge, because they don't have that well-developed theory of mind. They don't understand that other people are people with different outlooks, different perspectives, and so they don't care what happens. On the other side of the coin, this can also be a challenge for people who just who are on the spectrum, for example. They sometimes get challenged with theory of mind, so it's hard for them to put themselves in the shoes of somebody else. And that's just what we're talking about. It's about being able to say, I see there's another person, and I can understand why they might have motivations, emotions, feelings, thoughts from a specific perspective that is different than mine. And when you can do that, you then also are able to go, oh, because I can recognize that they have a different perspective, different motivations, feelings, etc., I can then understand how what I am going to do or say is going to impact that. Okay, that's what empathy is. And so what we're really talking about is being able to look at, in this case, in the sales process, our prospect, our customer, and go, I can see that this is another person who has emotions, who has an inner world, emotions and feelings and thoughts and motivations that is different than mine. And so if I want to influence that person, I have to be able to recognize where they are and then interact with them in that space. Now, this is very different than feeling sympathy. And I think that this is why also a lot of kind of the hardcore sales guys, they tend to be male, are like, really, you can't be empathetic. What they really are saying is you shouldn't be sympathetic. Now, sympathy means feeling for another person. Sympathy means I feel bad. I am compassionate. It's looking at somebody in a negative situation and feeling bad for them. That is sympathy. And there's a time and a place for sympathy. Absolutely. That's probably one of the most powerful parts of the human condition is our ability to be sympathetic towards somebody else. But that's not what we have to do when we're empathetic. You don't have to feel bad. You don't have to you don't have to act like you're in that person's place. You just have to be able to see the world from that place. And that's really important right now. So when people are talking about having empathy for somebody's situation, it's going, hey, I understand that you might be stressed, that you might be under a lot of negativity because of what's happening with the coronavirus and the economy. You know, your business might have just had some layoffs, and so you're feeling that stress. You don't have to feel bad, but you have to go, I understand, I get it. Okay, that's what empathy is. And I hope you're seeing why this is so powerful in a sales capacity. Because if you can have a conversation with someone and go, hey, I get where you're at. You know, I get what you want to, where you want to move towards. Again, I don't have to feel that, but I get where you're coming from. You can then position everything you're sharing with them through that lens. That's I call it being a sales Sherpa, and we're going to talk about being a sales Sherpa a lot. What a sales Sherpa can really do is go, I understand, to take the metaphor a little too far, I understand that you want to go up the mountain. I understand why you want to go up the mountain. I understand your fears, your hopes, your dreams, and I'm going to help you up the mountain. It's not saying that I'm going to share your motivations, fears, hopes, all those things, but I get them, and I get how to interact with you to help you actually achieve those. That is what we're trying to do. And it actually is encompassed in an old adage that's kind of been around the sales world for a long time. I mean, I learned it almost 25 years ago, and it was old back then. But you've probably heard this. All things being equal, people prefer to do business with those they know, like, and trust. And so you've probably heard of know, like, and trust. What know, like, and trust really is the idea of building empathy with somebody. Because when we know that somebody, that they know us, they get us, they like us, that's the basis of trust, and that's where there's willingness to do business. I once saw somebody say, know, like, and trust isn't important if you have something that they need. I don't think that's true. People aren't rational like that. You know, people over and over will do things that are against their best interest if they don't like another person. This is actually research. This is biology or psychology, neurobiology. I don't know. They've done, you know, there's a great thing where they actually did an experiment where they had two monkeys, and they were rewarding one disproportionately large for the same amount of work, or larger than the other. And the other one basically rebelled against it so that nobody was getting any rewards in this experiment. So people, that's how important this idea of having an empathetic connection with your people, developing that know, like, and trust is. And it's something that I also learned early, is that people buy emotionally and they justify rationally, right? They're going to decide whether or not to buy from you, to listen, whether or not they're going to listen to you based on emotion. They'll come back later and go, oh, hey, this has all the features and we got a nice price, all that kind of stuff. But they do that afterwards. I always share a story that one of the first cars I ever bought was a Blazer. I bought it because it had a 6-disc changer in the armrest. Yeah, it had good gas mileage. It was a 4x4, and here in Chicago, that's important. Had room for my drum set because I was playing in a band, but I really dug music, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I just was like fired up. And then I went through and found all those justifications. That's what people do. So you need to make sure that you are establishing that trust right up front, and that really comes from empathy. Yeah, Heather, thanks for throwing that in there. Building empathy, it is know, like, and trust. It's the same thing. It's just a different conceptualization of it. And so, again, what I want to do with our message today is really just hammer home how important it is to spend time on those human elements, because we've seen this, again, this push, I really feel in the last 10 years, it's heightened actually in the last couple of years, where there's, again, this, we want salespeople to be mechanical. We're worried about the email click funnel that we've created and the cadence that we use to get in touch with people. And this is something I say, when I'm speaking to a potential client for, our training or consulting or speaking, I go, well, yeah, if you can teach people how to, prospect really well and to get the conversation, what happens when they're in the conversation? And that's why I'm gonna spend all week talking about empathy, because I want your conversations to be really, really good. That's a way that I think not only do you find success now, but you stay relevant moving forward, right? Because the idea of technology taking over people's jobs has kind of been sidelined, over the last few months because of the coronavirus pandemic, and understandably, but the technology hasn't changed. And so I think what we're going to see now is, with a challenging economy, a lot of people looking for work, and, AI and bots and all of these things that work really, really well for certain things. I think we're going to see a sales world where just being able to be a machine isn't going to be good enough to get you the job and to keep a job. But at least up till now, they can't make machines be empathetic. They can kind of mimic it, but not truly. And so this is something this is part of it. I think, we got to add in creativity. There's some motivation as well that humans can add in that is hard to get into a machine. But one of the biggest things is the ability to actually create that connection, building that know, like, and trust. So this week, that's what we're going to dive into. Tomorrow specifically, what we're going to really dive into is some specific tools. Because what I will also say is that empathy is a skill. And the reason why I call it a skill is that it means it can be developed, it can be built. I think it's a skill kind of like running. We can all run. Right? We can all run. Some of us are better at running. We're just built differently. Some of us, our body, like, I am not built for running at all. I am short and stocky. That does not mean I should be running anywhere anytime soon. But no matter where your natural aptitude is, with intentional focus and practice, you can get better at it. So that's why we're going to be looking at some very specific tools tomorrow to actually do this, because again, I think empathy is this buzzword, but how do we make it not a buzzword? We actually make it practical. We make it applicable. And so that's what I want to dive into tomorrow, how we can actually put this into our day-to-day business conversations. And you can start doing it right away. So we'll go over about 4 or 5 ideas tomorrow. To move past that, we'll then look also at how to build your how to actually build the empathy skills. Actually, sorry, I'm mixing this up. Tomorrow, we're actually going to talk about how do you actually build empathy with your clients and prospects in the conversation. So we'll look at some conversational tools, right? Because it's a skill. Wednesday, we'll actually look at how to improve the skill. So tomorrow, we'll talk about the skill. Wednesday, we'll look at how do you actually build the muscle, how you hit the gym and get better. Thursday, we're going to talk about some fun little things that I've always enjoyed, called mirroring and matching, and most people misuse them. But if you actually understand the basic concepts of how to actually be in a conversation with somebody and create that connection, super powerful. And so I'll give you just a couple quick tips to get better at that. And then Friday, as always, we wrap that up. Maybe my co-host Liam will be here, but as we know, even though he's adorable, he's also just an uncontainable force of nature. So that is what we will be going over for this week. A couple things. If you do know anybody in sales who would find this valuable, and that could be a salesperson, small business owner, entrepreneur, solopreneur, freelancer, please forward this to them. Or if you can share, I will be posting about this regularly throughout the week. I appreciate when people share it with their networks. It actually helps the message get shared a lot. And I know that this is not only going to be helpful to people, but it's going to be helpful now and in the future. I want to try to change the conversation a little bit around sales and empathy. We also, for those of you who are solopreneurs, small business owners, freelancers, this Thursday we have a call with the Deep Fish Selling Launchpad, which is a coaching group specifically for everybody in those categories. If you'd like to join us for free, I'd like to invite you to do that. Please just send me a message afterwards, and I'm more than happy to connect you and get you signed up for that. And if there's anything else I can help with, let me know. This is what I do. I talk about sales, I coach, I consult, I train. If you know organizations who want to do virtual webinars and stuff for their teams, especially now that a lot of people are working from home, please reach out. I've been doing a lot more of that. It's been a lot of fun. As always, we don't know when we're going to kind of wrap up with this self-isolation, all that kind of quarantine, all that kind of good stuff. So in the meantime, take care of yourself. I always say, be patient, be kind, take care of one another. I'm going to say it again, be patient, be kind, take care of one another. I actually just posted an article today on my blog about kind of a tool that I learned from a great book called Man's Search for Meaning way back when I was in high school. I think you get a lot out of it. If you want to check that out, all you have to do is go to my website at davidjpfisher.com. It'll be right there on the homepage. It's like, I think the title is you can't put a deadline on happiness, or don't put happiness on a deadline. I don't know. It's a good article. It's really short. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback. It just went live this morning. So I think that could be helpful to you. And as I always say, thank you to all the people who are keeping things running in this really stressful time. So the delivery drivers, the people at the grocery store, the bus driver, train driver, people who are just as scared as all of us about everything that's going on and still showing up to work, making things happen. Obviously, our healthcare providers, our nurses, our doctors, EMTs, everybody who's still making things happen. I wish you a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.